Today we're going to start experimenting with pen a little bit. So we are going to start by grabbing our sketchbook and start with our title. So we are going to measure 1 inch from the top of the page and we will start writing it out. Make sure that when you're measuring to put the title at the top of the page, you are measuring on both sides. In order for that line to be straight, we are going to use a pencil for the line so then we can easily erase it. And then we're going to create our title, which is going to be Paint Study. Once we're ready to move on, we are going to measure 1/4 of an inch from that line that we just drew. And we're going to mark it down on both sides of the page and pull that line again. So this is going to be our empty space before our first value scale. So we're going to create 2 1-inch value scales. So we're going to measure 1 inch from that line and draw the full straight line again. And then we are going to basically repeat that process again. So measure another 1/4 of an inch from that line, and I'm just marking it down so you can see it better and remember it easier. So you're going to measure another 1/4 of an inch from that line that we just created and another inch right after. So we're going to create 2 of those 1-inch sections. So those will be our 2 1-inch value scales. So once we have those 2 lines, we are going to start by focusing only on our top one, on our top value scale. And we are going to place our ruler touching the edge of our sketchbook. And we are going to start creating little tallies at every single inch. So at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's going to be a little bit left over, but that doesn't really matter. So we're going to do that at the bottom of that 1-inch value scale as well, only on the first one though. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we are going to draw those lines, connect those lines, and start creating our boxes for our value scale. So we are going to start by focusing on the first value scale. So I'm grabbing some washi tape just to make sure I stay in the lines and I keep my lines very straight and nice and neat. And I'm going to place that washi tape following the bottom line and the top line of that value scale. We are going to then start taping around our first square and our last square. So we're just prepping those areas and getting them ready for when we have to start painting. So this is going to be our black and white value scale. So obviously our first square is going to end up being white and our last one is going to start by being black. So we are going to start filling those in. So I'm going to grab some white paint and I don't know if you're going to very much be able to see it in this square, but you are going to try to apply a very even layer. So there's no bumps, there's no creases. And we are going to neatly and nicely cover that square. You can use the brush in multiple different directions. Just make sure that you're filling in that square. If you go on the washi tape, that is totally fine. Do not worry about that. Do not stress about that. Once we have that nice clean layer, we are going to rinse our brush off, maybe dry it out a little bit on a piece of paper towel. And then we're going to dip it in our black paint. So we are going to proceed in the same way. So we're going to fill in that whole entire square with black paint. So you can go multiple directions. Just make sure that the paint is even and nice and it is going to dry fairly fast. So for the next square, we are going to work on our middle square. So I'm just using a little piece of parchment paper, the shiniest side up, to just mix my colors on top of it, just to not get them mixed in the palette. So the students in the next class can use those same colors. So I'm going to grab a little bit of white and put it on my palette and then on my parchment paper, and then I'm going to rinse my brush, dry it out, and then I'm going to do the same thing with black paint. I'm just putting it on a different side, so when I'm going to mix them, I am going to decide however much I want to mix together. So as you can see, I'm just starting to grab some of that black paint that I just put there and put it in the middle of my palette. So then I'm going to grab about the same amount of white paint and mix it together. So that is going to be the color of our middle square. So it's going to be this kind of gray, medium gray, and we are going to utilize that to fill everything in. Just make sure that it's mixed very well. So once I'm ready, I'm just going to peel off the tape off of my black square and off of my white square, since it's probably already dry, but you can just like check it out, or I can reuse new tape, as you can see. And I'm going to start taping around my middle square. So we're just going to get that one ready, set it up in order for us to be able to start painting it with the gray that we just created, our medium gray. So once we have it taped off, we are going to grab that paintbrush with that medium gray, and we are going to quickly fill that medium gray square in, always keeping the paint even. We don't want any bumps, and making sure that we fill the whole entire square nicely and neatly with an even layer, and that we cannot see the paper underneath. So it is going to look something like that, and I'm zooming out a little bit so you can see it better. So once we have that ready, we are going to still use that gray that we just created, because there is a lot left over. So we're going to basically almost like split it in half. So with half of it, we are going to add a little bit more black. So we're going to create that medium to dark gray. So as you can see, I'm mixing black with that gray. It's creating a darker gray. And then with the other half, what I'm going to do is mix in more white, and I'm going to create a lighter gray. So here you see me just grabbing some of that extra white at the bottom of my palette and mix it in with that gray to create a lighter version of it. So that is going to become our medium to light gray. Once we have our colors ready and our value scale is dry, what we're going to do is start peeling off those little pieces of tape from the value scale, and we're going to start setting them up so we can fill in those other last two squares. So just get them ready, put the tape down for both of those squares. Just make sure that the grays, the white, and the black are dry before you start doing this, or you will start peeling off the paint. Once we have it taped off and ready, what we're going to do is start painting it in with those two grays that we just created. So make sure, like always, you fill it in nicely and that you rinse the brush off between the light gray and the dark gray. So as you can see, just fill in that square very nicely, keep the paint even, and then rinse your brush off and fill in the next one. We are going to let it dry for a bit of time, and once we're sure it's ready and dry, we are going to start peeling off that tape as well. So as you can see, I'm just taking my time, going very slowly, and my lines are starting to look very nice and neat. There is no gap between my squares, and it looks like a normal, nice, clean value scales. It goes from white to light gray to medium gray to dark gray and to black. So this is going to be our first value scale, and then next thing in the next video, we are going to start creating our black white to black gradient. So just watch the next video for the next part.